We knew recruiting would get a bump after A-Day. How big a bump?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. We'll talk about Monarch Money here in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today. And thanks everybody for making this your first listen every single day. Jimmy, we've already gotten a commitment, Alabama has, from Cincere Johnson. We both like this commitment a lot. We think he will move up the rankings. He is a defensive lineman who's already huge, but has a baby face, which tells me he's got a lot of room to improve, even though he's already good. That is the weirdest way to evaluate defensive linemen, but I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I don't think that term will come up much in the NFL draft. About a week and a half.
Well, it's kind of like
they're looking at things like 40s and shuttle times.
It's like the crazy hot index from, I think it was How I Met Your Mother or something, where anyway. Yeah. But there's some other good positive vibes coming out of A-Day from recruiting, one of which is coming from Titan Davis, who is another defensive lineman. He has the best name. I mean, if your name is Titan Davis and you're a defensive lineman, I'm just going to take a swing at you. I'm going to let you come. I don't even have to see you play. I'm going to take a shot at a guy named Titan who plays defensive line. And this guy is really good, from Missouri. He is a 4-star universally. The lowest he is ranked is by 24/7, and that's 181. And the highest he's ranked is number 56. Most of the predictions have him going to Nebraska. But I'm at the point in my life where if we can't beat Nebraska for somebody, that's on us.
Right. Well, we actually lost. Was that linebacker we lost to Nebraska, Dawson Merritt? A couple. But his dad was coaching.
We did, but I'm not as like that. Doesn't floor me as much. I mean, there were some circumstances there.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to worry more about losing, like when we're head-to-head with Ohio State or head-to-head with Georgia. I mean, you can just lose out there, or head-to-head with a school that's recruiting with a really big checkbook. And I think Nebraska is very aggressive NIL-wise. You kind of have to be to climb the ladder these days, and they're very interested in climbing the ladder. I think Alabama, just reading what they write on BOL anyway and talking to people, I would probably include Titan Davis if I was projecting Alabama signing class. I'd probably include him, or I would right now, based on how things are going. And I think partly it's like Luke said, if Nebraska's the primary competition, and we'll see. Missouri's probably up there, and they're kind of hard to beat now for guys that they really, really want. But boy, that would be a great ad to go along with Mhari Johnson, because I think, he's not the kid that committed this weekend's not super highly ranked or right now. And I agree with Luke that he's going to move up. I don't think he's going to move up into crazy range. To me, that would be like top 100 nationally. I don't think he'll ever be that guy, but I think he'll be somewhere in that 150 range, which makes him a real, a good blue chip prospect. I think Titan Davis is a little more elite. I think he's more national top 100 type. I mean, that's where he's going to be. That's why it'll be a big pickup. I think if you got those two for the defensive line interior, that's a great group. And for all the people that want to stockpile defensive linemen, I get where you're coming from, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just also saying I don't know how realistic it is in 2025 to, if you have a bunch of defensive linemen, they're just going to leave. And the ones that aren't playing. Alabama plays a 3-3-4 defense, or a 3-3-5 defense, or you could call it a 4-2-5. To me, it's a 3-3-5. But you only have 3 defensive linemen on the field at once, and the vast majority of alignments, 3. I think having more than 12 defensive linemen, all you're doing is ensuring the fact that the kids at the bottom are going to leave, and you've worked for a year or two on developing them until they're ready to play, and they're just going to go play for somebody else. I think the goal should be, if you start 3 defensive linemen, then you need a minimum of 3. And 3 is a good number. If you sign 3 every year over 4 years, 3 times 4 is 12. Now, you might have some attrition and maybe you need to sign 4 or 5 in some groups. And I think this may be one of those groups. I'm guessing Alabama ends up with 5 in this class. Just keep in mind, there's only room for 3 starters. Jamarian Matthews is a defensive lineman. I know he's committed and people say he's a bandit or you might see him as an edge, but he's going to play for Freddie Roach. That makes him a defensive lineman because Freddie Roach is a defensive line coach. So Matthews is 1, Mhari Johnson's 2, Titan Davis will be 3. I think they're going to want a couple more, and a guy to keep an eye on because we're going to talk about him a ton all summer is Tank Jones. He's a bandit too, just like Jameer Matthews, but that makes him a defensive lineman. Again, if you're coached by Freddie, you're a defensive lineman. I don't care what else, how else that in your world you term a bandit or a defensive end in Alabama's system. But to me, if you're coached by Freddie Roach, you're a defensive lineman because it says right there on the door to his office, Freddie Roach, defensive line coach.
Esquire.
Yeah.
That would be cool if he had that defensive line coach, Esquire.
How about MD? You're just going to throw them out there.
All right. And the MD stands for mean dude. All right. You brought up Tank Jones. I wasn't going to go there next, but I will because even though he didn't go to Alabama, he went to Auburn this weekend. And, even the Auburn moderators were like, okay, yeah, not even close to a commitment. Some people looked at it as if he went to Auburn instead of Alabama. He didn't. He went to Auburn instead of Michigan, which makes all the sense in the world. I've driven to Michigan. It's a long way. I've flown to Michigan. It's still a long way.
Yeah.
So
it's a heck of an unofficial trip.
Yeah. And so I get that. I don't think that was as big of a recruiting coup as some people wanted to make it sound initially. And look, I still feel pretty good about Alabama's chances there based on what little I know. So Tank Jones is somebody we will continue to talk about in the summer, even though he didn't visit Alabama, obviously, for A-Day. That's okay. He wasn't planning on it to begin with. Now, a guy that you and I love is Jacquez Wilkes. He did show up.
Sort of turning into a Jacquez Wilkes podcast. Since Ryan got his own podcast, we might as well flip somebody else.
I think we just need to have 2 podcasts. I'm not abandoning Ryan Williams' podcast.
So Ryan has his own podcast, and this is the unofficial Ryan Williams podcast, though it was before his. I think we've laid some claim to it, but
I just want to be there. If Ryan Williams gives up on his podcast, I want to just step in that void. That's all. But Jacquez Wilkes is a guy that you and I do love. And it felt for like at the very beginning, months ago, like maybe Alabama had the edge. Then it felt like Auburn had the edge because he kept going there a lot. Well, he showed up at Alabama this week, and it feels like Alabama is at least even right now. And so again, I don't think it's a little bit like the Tank Jones situation where you can read the tea leaves and it feels like Tank Jones will end up at Bama. You can read the tea leaves and it feels like Jacquez Wilkes will end up at Auburn. But I don't think his is as much of a gap between the two.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Tim Watts noted on BOL that Wilkes' parents are Alabama fans. That's interesting because me and you have kind of associated Jacquez Wilkes with Auburn. I think some of that has to do with geography and Auburn's success recruiting the smaller schools as opposed to Alabama, who, you can call it, profiling, but Alabama seems to have more success with the 7A, 6A type kids, Auburn with the smaller school in general, with, of course, a million exceptions to these rules. But I do think that Alabama's got a real good shot at Wilkes. To me, it's how does Alabama prioritize Wilkes? For instance, Tank Jones. I don't mean to abandon Jacquez and go back to Tank, but I just feel like Tank Jones' recruitment is this. I think his natural inclination's Alabama. I mean, I think that's where, quote, favorite school. If he's got pom-poms in his house, they're probably crimson and not blue and orange. I think Alabama guy. But Auburn, give them credit. I think Auburn prioritized him loudly and boldly and is sort of making a big deal out of him. It would be like me and Luke are old, so it's kind of like Charlie's Angels. If we're like, who we really like is Farrah Fawcett. And Farrah Fawcett's like, yeah, I like Jimmy and Luke. But then Jacqueline Smith is like bum rushing us and just sending us flowers. Is that what they do? Is send us flowers and sliding into our DMs. We're going to be like, hey, it's pretty cool how Jacqueline Smith is treating us here. Farrah Fawcett's just like, hey,
God, I'd be
like
so happy with Jacqueline Smith. I don't even know what to tell you, because Farrah Fawcett, I mean, it's like
Who's kidding?
everybody had a poster of her.
We'd be happy with Kate Jackson's maid.
I'd be happy with Farrah Smith. I mean, I don't care. But anyway,
it was a bad analogy. But I just mean,
it's maybe the worst analogy you've ever had that actually made me smile.
It was so bad. The point is,
Auburn, it gave me nostalgia.
Auburn has bum rushed Tank Jones, and he's listening, and that's why he was there this week. I think that recruitment could go either way. I think there's a natural inclination to Alabama. But hey, I like saying, if I was a betting man, which I'm not really, and it would be really stupid to bet on recruiting, really stupid, because anything could happen, especially in 2025. But if I'm guessing today, I would guess Tank Jones to Alabama and Jacquez Wilkes to Auburn. That's what I would guess today. But both could end up at Alabama. Both could end up at Auburn. What will surprise me, Luke, from where we stand now, what will surprise me is if Tank Jones or Jacquez Wilkes end up anywhere but Alabama or Auburn. And I sort of enjoy these. Heck, we just did a 70s throwback to Charlie's Angels. This kind of feels like an 80s, 90s throwback. The Alabama-Auburn recruiting battles feel very pre-internet.
Well, something that is clearly post-internet, that's Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I hope that still means getting money to the new people. I don't know anymore. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com.
You know what just occurred to me when you gave your money sign, which kind of looked like you were clapping, probably from my Charlie's Angel analogy. I think the money sign is this. Rubbing my fingers together. I think that yeah. That's the money
this
sign.
is when you're spending the money.
And I learned it from Johnny Manziel back.
Of course, we learned it from Johnny Manziel.
Of course, I learned the money sign from Johnny Manziel, and it just occurred to me. Imagine if we had NIL back in Johnny Manziel's time, and it had been brand new in Manziel's time. Now, I know Manziel got some unofficial NIL. He's already told the world. But imagine NIL was the law of the land. What Nico Iamaleava did this weekend would pale in comparison. Oh. I think Manziel, the college Manziel that we know, would have been out of control with it. It would have been, he probably would have gone to 3 schools in 3 years, and each one topping. And hey, production wise, he'd have lived up to it. He's one of the best college quarterbacks in my lifetime in terms of being extremely difficult to defend in the college game. But so he'd have been worth it, and a better player than Nico has been so far, by the way. Let's add that. But boy, that would have been an interesting personality in the NIL era, to say the least.
You know, listen, and we weren't going to do this, but we're going to take a little pivot here and talk about some NIL stuff, and then go back to recruiting, because there is more recruiting to discuss, like Cincere Johnson and things like that. But you bring up a great point, how the history of college football could have been just changed dramatically, depending on when NIL is enacted. Now, I mean, obviously, I don't want to go back too terribly far. You know, you could get all kind of nutty, but Manziel is a good place to start. Or even, a Cam Newton. Is there any doubt that either one of those guys, given their personalities, given the outside influences they had, my guess is they would have pulled some things like Nico Iamaleava did, where the rumor now is Nico basically told Tennessee there was a problem right before the playoff game. Like, I want more money before the playoff game.
Yeah,
And I'm not necessarily picking. I know it sounds like I'm picking on those two guys. I don't mean to be, but I'm saying there would have been players that clearly would have done that. And I'm trying to pick out big names that we know. There are probably other players that would have done it
sure.
too.
Well, what Josh Pate was saying that Nico did about want more money before the playoff, I have heard that extended to even programs not in the playoff where players wanted more money to play in the bowl. And
yeah. We did hear about that.
I think it's common. I think it's commonplace, and not just when people are like, "Boy, that Nico guy's out of control." I think that was a pretty common thing around college football.
We heard it about
programs.
Alabama. Yeah. We heard it about a certain wide receiver at Alabama before the Michigan game in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a lot of rumors. I hear a lot of Alabama rumors, and a lot of them are true, and a lot of them are not, and that's why we don't talk about them here until they're more verified. It's not fair to just bring up, but yeah, I heard that happened at Alabama with more than one player, but I don't know that it's I can't verify that's true. But my point is, I don't want people out there thinking, gosh, that Nico was alone in that. I don't think he was at all. I don't think what Nico did this time, instead of saying, hey, I know I've agreed to this, but I want more money, I think Nico's the most publicized of those cases, but I think that happens pretty much everywhere too. It's what happens when there's no real system with guardrails and rules. It's the wild, wild west, and everybody's out for themselves. And a lot of these guys don't have quality agents. Nico's dad, to my understanding, handled a lot of Nico's stuff. And per Josh Pate, Nico has now hired an agent.
But sweet Jesus, I hope so, because Nico's dad is a far cry from Jerry Maguire.
Well, that's why these kids, when you're talking about big time money, it's just like having a lawyer. And everybody hates lawyers till they need one. I would say that in my office all the time when I was a lawyer. When people would say, I can't believe I have to call you because I don't like lawyers. Everybody hates them until you need one. But when you need one, it becomes quite valuable. And agents are basically lawyers. Yes, if you're a high profile top 100 kid, if you're a top 100 prospect, if you're a top prospect in the portal, if you're a starting football player at a Power 4 football team, you need an agent. You need one. Don't rely on dad. Don't rely on an uncle. Don't rely on your ball coach. Get a reputable agent. And the reputable agents, sure, they represent their clients. They're not working in the best interest of the team or college football. They're representing their client. But if they're a reputable quality agent, that's fine.
But again, the biggest problem for me, okay, I kind of almost get it. If you're like, hey, I need a little more money to play in this bowl game, because the bowl game means diddly pea squat. It means nothing. So, but if you're in the playoffs and you do that, I feel like you're holding your entire team hostage and the fan base and the coaches and everything. And I'm like, hey, this is a mutually beneficial thing for everybody. Yes, you are taking a risk. You are taking a risk. You could go out there and get hurt, blah, 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 blah. But you're also, the chances of your getting hurt are not huge, despite what somebody may tell you, despite what you may have heard. Most of the time when we watch a football game, there is no career-ending injury. We've seen them. We've seen them in the Super Bowls. We've seen them all over the place. We've seen them in a bowl game that didn't matter, in the Fiesta Bowl, to that kid from Notre Dame who was a linebacker or whatever. We've seen them happen, but it doesn't happen much. And the risk is certainly worth the reward, in my opinion. And imagine if Nico had beaten Ohio State. Imagine that if he had done that, and if he's going to hold out before Ohio State when he's a mediocre player, somebody has to say it. He's very mediocre. At least he's proven to be mediocre to date.
I would say I would differ a little bit. I would say he's been good, but not great, but is likely to finish his career great. I think, what we see, because he's going to improve as he plays more and gains more experience, and there's clearly raw tools. I think he's been pretty good. I mean, I think it's overplayed a little bit that he's average, because I don't think an average quarterback is going to win those SEC games as a redshirt, basically a redshirt freshman, get quarterback in his team to the playoff from the SEC. Now, is he worth $4 million? Heck no. Heck no. I don't even know that he was worth $2.6 million.
Let me tell you this. Okay. And again, I'm not disagreeing with, I understand where you're coming from. And I'm saying mediocre you and I, sometimes we get, hey, this kid was such a bona fide 5-star that it's hard to get it out of our heads. He had 2,616 yards last year, 19 touchdowns and 5 picks. I mean, that ain't setting the world on fire. On top of that, 4 of his touchdowns came against Vanderbilt. I know Luke Vanderbilt beat Alabama, so what are you talking about? I get it. It's still Vandy. I'm still going to hold to what I'm saying. He had 0 touchdowns against Ohio State. I'm going to pull up all his stats really quickly. He had 4 touchdowns against UTEP, so 8 of his touchdowns came against UTEP and Vandy. Another 2 came against NC State, who turned out to be a dud last year, and another 2 against Mississippi State, who's not good. He had 1 TD against Kentucky, 1 against Oklahoma, none against Arkansas or Florida, 1 against Bama, 1 against Kentucky, and none against Georgia. To me, that screams mediocre.
I think when you take into account the winning and his age, again, these guys are going to change. And when you're paying these guys, you're not paying on what they've done. You're paying them on what they will be. And Nico, to me, is on a track to be really good by the time he's done and be a pro football quarterback. I think what he's done so far is pretty, like, for instance, last year, who had a better year, Nico or Milroe? I would tell you Milroe almost by far, even though Milroe obviously had some poor games and lost games. But I think Jalen Milroe was a better quarterback than Nico last year. But I'd understand anybody that would say, yeah, but Nico's going to be better in his career than Jalen was in his. That's probably true. I don't know.
Jalen had more yards passing. He clearly had more picks. He had fewer interceptions, but he had a lot more rushing touchdowns and a lot more rushing yards.
You have to factor in the rushing yards whenever you're talking about a dual threat quarterback. The rushing yards count. Milroe might have been a little more error prone, which is, a shame considering he was, older than Nico. But it's not about that. To me, it's just about where does Nico rank? And the 65 Power 4 programs, to me, a mediocre quarterback would be someone that you would rank, in the 30s, of 40. I think Nico's a little better than that, but is he top 10? Heck no. Is he top 20? Probably not. No. Now, he might be later. And again, what you're paying for these guys is what you think they will be, not what they've been. NFL teams make that mistake all the time with free agent contracts, and Major League Baseball too. You can't pay them on what they were. You have to pay them on what you think they will be. And the same extends for college quarterbacks. It's not, hey, we're going to reward you for what you did last year. Here's a bunch of money. No, it's about what we think you'll be this year.
Talking a little Supply House now. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 or more top brands, you'll find exactly what you need. It'll be delivered fast, and it's from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Should have let you do that. All right, let's go back to some recruiting stuff, Jimmy. And Cincere Johnson was here, and we sincerely want him in this class.
I did see him at the Denny Chimes thing. Again, every time I hear Cincere, I think of Reuben Foster. That's an ultimate compliment. I think that's overdoing on my part. So I think I'm going to be more fair to Cincere Johnson and Reuben. I think I'm just going to say Reuben Light, because I don't think he should be ranked where Reuben was coming out of high school, but I do think he's in the ballpark and he's underranked. I love Cincere Johnson. A little bit of a throwback. Going to be some question about can he play in space at this next level? But that was the question about Ruben, and he emphatically answered it later in his career. But let's remember, Ruben didn't start until his true junior season. He spent 2 years before he was ready to be a starter. Why? Had to work on playing in space and understanding where he needed to be on what play calls and reading an offense and all that stuff. Took him a couple of years. It might take Cincere that. I mean, he's got to play in space. But man, those runs in between the tackle box, forget it. He's just going to clean it up like a vacuum cleaner. Cincere is one of my favorites in this class, and he's just going to,
How do you have a whole thing on Charlie's Angels and then clean it up like a vacuum cleaner? It's got to be cooler than that.
Yeah, that's no good.
Clean it up like a maid on steroids. Clean.
Already mentioned Kate Jackson's maid earlier.
Huh?
Already mentioned Kate Jackson's maid earlier. That's 2 maid
Yeah,
references.
clean it up. Even like a shop vac on meth. Something like that. That would be good.
You go straight to drugs whenever we're talking.
Yeah, okay. You always add. Listen, to make an analogy work, you always say, clean it up like blank on some kind of drug. That always.
That's right. Okay.
That's how you do it.
I hope he cleans it up like an elephant on baby aspirin.
We'll work on it.
Need to work on this. Need to work on that. Let's stick with Charlie's Angels. Cincere is a good prospect. Is he coming to Alabama? Now, again, good report on BOL over the weekend after his visit. I just go back to Justin Hill a year ago. I think it's going to be really difficult to get Cincere Johnson out of Ohio State. It's going to be really difficult, and a lot of people are going to bet against it. Alabama ended up signing Justin Hill from Ohio, defensive front seven guy. Ohio State wanted him. This is Justin Hill, the sequel. Odds are, I guess if you're playing math, it's going to go the other way, right? Because Alabama got the last one. But I think Alabama's very realistic here. And Alabama's losing some inside linebackers. Let's remember Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, and Nakai Hill-Green. I think those will be Alabama's 3 primary inside linebackers this fall. Those are the guys who are going to play all the snaps. They're all gone. After that, they're all gone. Now, Alabama's got some young guys like QB Reese, Caden Jones, Luke Metz, Abdul Sanders. But Alabama will be in the market for, hey, we may need immediate help at this position. We're losing our 3 senior inside linebackers who are going to play all the snaps. So that's another reason that Cincere Johnson should be, strongly considered in Alabama, because there will be playing time. Sometimes that's an exaggeration. It's not in this case at all. There will be opportunity for Alabama at inside linebacker in 2026.
We've talked about Jet Washington from Bishop Gorman a lot. He was here. It seems like things are going well. We've talked about E.J. Crowell.
Some E.J. Crowell podcast. Crowell.
Okay. Thank you. When it's Crowell, it really
can go either. It can go anyway. Yeah. But I think it's Crowell. But we talk about him a lot. This is practically an E.J. Crowell podcast. It's a podcast about everyone but me and you. Ryan, Crowell. He's so good though. I compare him to Bijan Robinson. I couldn't come up with an Alabama comp I love for EJ. I've tried what's close here, but I love the Bijan Robinson comp because exact same size, very similar speed, catches the ball. It's got moves like him. I even watched a Bijan Robinson Texas highlight tape before I married that comp. But to me, they're like, man, this is and heck, and Crowell likes Texas, by the way. I bet they use that comp at Texas. But hey, you can be Bijan Robinson at Alabama too. It's not Bijan didn't have to. If Bijan had gone to
we've already had a Bijan.
If he had gone to Alabama, he'd still be in the same spot, NFL star back. But he is very similar.
The final one we'll talk about here for a minute is Cedarian Morgan. It sure feels like it's leaning Alabama's way. Now, look, I am a pessimist by nature for the most part. I'm super pessimistic when it comes to my hometown, Alexander City kids going to the University of Alabama over Auburn. However, I think this case is a little bit different. And I do think he ends up at Alabama now.
No, you did. You did.
I know, I did. I know that is true.
You didn't go to Auburn.
Yeah, but also wasn't a superstar pass receiver. I was not a superstar anything.
You're pretty good.
All I had was a Farrah Fawcett poster.
You're pretty good at this. Did you
And
walk
some
in the
elephants
SA?
with baby aspirin for some reason. But
You walk in the
but-
SAA house in the 90s, and they're like, "What are you going to do with your life?" I'm going to be a podcaster. And they're like, "What the hell is that? What is that?" And you're like, I don't even know. I don't know.
Everybody was probably on baby aspirin when I was there, or if not something a little more elevated. All right. So Sadarian Morgan, we do feel like he'll end up at Alabama, right, Jimmy? And I'm speaking for we here.
Yeah, sure. That's my projection today. I feel even pretty confident about it. I think Crowell goes to Alabama too, but keep in mind that's a projection today. I am optimistic. People say, of course, he's an Alabama homer. I am an Alabama homer. I am. But this is what I like more than Alabama, and that's being right. I want to be right. So I'm not gonna project someone that I honestly don't think. I said earlier, Jacquez Wilkes to Auburn. I would love to have him at Alabama, and I think he might go to Alabama. I'm just saying, I don't project them all to go to Alabama, but I do like C.D. Morgan and Crowell at Alabama. Cincere Johnson, I'm a little Luke here. He's a high priority player from Ohio that Ohio State badly wants. I'm going to say Ohio State. I'm just pointing out that I would have said the same exact thing 1 year ago with Justin Hill, and he chooses Alabama. So don't get all pessimistic. I'm just trying to be right.
All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.